Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Mostly From Scratch. I am your host Mr. Munchies, and in this episode I am going to be showing you how to make New England clam chowder with Cheddar Bay biscuits. Now I'm going to split these episodes up into two. The first one's going to be the clam chowder, the second one will be the biscuits. So let's go over our ingredient list. First we have 3 good-sized baking potatoes. Now I don't know if I'm going to use all 3, it might only be 2. Because they are pretty big. 1 cup of finely minced celery. Now I used a countertop chopper to get this nice and small, because that would have took all day with a knife. 1 cup of finely minced carrot. 1/2 cup of finely minced onion. 1 quart of half and half. I bought a bag of clams because I'm going to use fresh clams, and I'm going to use some canned clams because the canned clams have the juice in it. So the first thing we want to do, as you can see here, I've already got my water boiling. I'm going to peel and cut 1 potato extremely thin so it cooks pretty fast, and then I'm going to steam my clams. Now, clam chowder is a potato-based chowder. So what I'm going to do with the first potato is cook that down to the point where it's almost to a mashed potato consistency, and that's going to be the base of our soup. So I'm going to break away, I'm going to peel and cut my potatoes, get them boiling, and get my fresh clams steaming. Now, if you've never steamed fresh clams before, you get a pot, either put a vegetable steamer, little thing in there like that, or you can use a colander with about 1/2 inch of water in there. Get it boiling, get it steaming, put your clams in there, and as they open up, they're done, so pull them out. Now I've always been told that if a clam doesn't open when it's steamed, it's no good, so don't use it. I'd never really checked into that, but ever since I was a kid, that was the rule. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break away now, get those started, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I just wanted to show you, I got my potatoes boiling and I got my first few clams steamed out, and this is what they look like when they open up. So now I'm just going to let them cool off, and then I'm going to peel the meat out of the shell. And that's simple enough to do. Most of them will just fall out. If not, they're pretty cool already. If not, you could just take a butter knife and just go along the shell and the meat will come right out. So I'm going to get these out of there, keep my potatoes boiling, get the other half in, get them steamed, get them out, chopped up, and then I'll be back. Alright, I'm back, and my clams have come out. I've got them all chopped up, and this is what you get from 50, I think they were little necks, or cherry stones, little necks. But I chopped them up, put them in a strainer, rinsed them out, make sure I get all the sand and stuff out of it. There we go. Alright, so now here's my potatoes. They are cooked down to the point where almost all the water had boiled off of them. Close look at that. This is going to be your base. So now what I'm going to do is get my maricois, your vegetables, start sauteing them. So I'm going to put my carrots in, celery, and my onions. I'm going to cook them on about a medium until the onions and the celery become a little translucent. So we're going to let that simmer. Take a look at that. I'm going to let this simmer for probably about, I'm going to say 10 minutes, roughly. So I'll come back once these are all cooked down, and we'll start adding some other stuff to it. So I'll be right back. Alright, take a look at that. Our vegetables have cooked. They are soft. Smelling really good. Now, if you are using strictly fresh clams, you're probably going to have to buy a couple of bottles of the clam juice, because I'm using some canned clams as well as the fresh clams. I've drained the juice into a measuring cup and have approximately 2 cups of juice there, 16 ounces. So now what I'm going to do is put about half of that in here. And that's about a cup. I'll get my heat turned up a little bit here. Stir that around a little bit. Make sure this is getting hot. And now we're going to take our potatoes that we boiled off. Just give them a quick little mash with their spatula here. Make sure there's no chunks. And we're going to start adding this to our vegetable and clam juice mixture. See what we got here? It's basically mashed potatoes with nothing in it. So let's get our heat up a little bit here, about medium high. Now at this point, I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper. No salt because the clam juice is pretty salty. So at the end, if you want a little more salt in your chowder, you can do that. So this is just personal here. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of black pepper to that. And I may add a little cayenne later on as well. Get that stirred in there. Our juice is starting to bubble. Now I only added half of the juice because I'm going to reserve it in case I need to thin this out, or if I need to thicken it, I'm going to use that to make a roux. It's as far as how thick or thin you want it, that's going to be your personal preference. Alright, so let's add our potato. Get this in there, get it mixed around. Now I've still got the other 2 potatoes. One of them I'm going to cut into cubes to throw in. You're going to do that towards the end because you don't want I'm going to cut it up real nice and small because you don't want that to, you don't want your potato chunks to cook down and just disappear like the mashed potatoes here. Alright, get this back down to about a medium heat. Stir this in. Now, it smells like mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes and veggies. Take a look at that. What that looks like there. So to this, we're going to start adding our cream, or half and half actually. And because our half and half is kind of cold, I'm going to turn this heat back up to about a medium high because this is going to cool everything down pretty quick. I'll put about half of it in to start out with. Now, when you buy clam chowder out somewhere or buy it in a can, you typically don't see the vegetables in it. I can't tell you how they make theirs, if they do it this way or not, or if you don't want to see the vegetables. Like I said, I chop mine in one of those little countertop choppers. It's like a mini food processor, and you can chop this stuff up to it's the point of almost a liquid, and that way you won't see any of your vegetable pieces in there. So now we've got pretty thin soup, or chowder I should say. Now I mentioned making a roux to thicken this up. I typically don't use a roux in a chowder. What I will do is, like I said, I'm going to cut one of these potatoes into cubes to throw in there. Probably take half of another one and get a really fine, almost like what do you call it? Like what you use for grating nutmeg. Here, I'll show you. Very small grater, and I will grate more potato into it to thicken mine up. But you can do that with the potato, where you can make a roux. Because the cream, as the cream cooks and combines with the starch and the potatoes, it'll thicken up as it cooks. You know, the more it cooks, the thicker it'll get. So it's one of those things where once you're done with it and you think, okay, it's pretty thin, I may want it a little bit thicker, then you can either make your roux or add your potato to it. As it stands right now, especially adding the rest of the cream to this, it's pretty thin. So I'm going to do what I typically do, and that's grate another potato into it to thicken it up some more. Because right now we basically have a very thin soup. See that? So now I'm going to add my clams. Got our fresh clams, that's going in. Careful you don't splash yourself with this hot stuff. And we got our canned clams going in. And it's quite a bit of clams. I actually get these at my local dollar store. They've been hard to find lately. Dollar store is like one of those things where sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. But you get quite a bit of clam in each can. And I actually did a weight comparison to other brands and other size cans, and dollar for dollar, these small cans from the dollar store, you actually get more clam in them. More grams of clam. Alright, so we got all our clam in there. And it's thin. It's like a soup right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cook for probably about 15-20 minutes. See how much it thickens up. So I'm going to have to add more potato to it or not. So once that's simmered for a while, I'll be back. We'll take a look at it, give a determination on how thick we want it. Alright, so hang in there. I'll be back soon. Well, it's been about 20 minutes. I've let the chowder cook down, and it's not quite as thick as I would like it. It's still pretty soup thin, I would say. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and grate my other potato, slippery potato. I'm just going to grate this in there. I'm going to grate almost the whole thing in. That'll help it thicken up so I don't have to make a roux. And I've already cubed up my other potato to throw in there. I'll grab a couple pieces and show you about the size that I chopped them up. Go focus. Come on. That you can get the idea of how big they are. A little bit, almost the size of a sugar cube. And that's going to be personal preference as well. I don't want big, huge chunks of potato in there. I just want it to accent it. So I'm going to break away, get this grated in there, and then I'll come back. I grated in half of the potato, and the thing about when you're grating in the potato, you can see your results instantly. You can see how much this thickened up. So I've got about a half a potato left, so what I'm going to do is add the rest of my clam juice to this, thin it out again, and then add the rest of the potato to bring it right back to where it was. And then we can start adding any seasoning you want to add to it. If you want to add salt or maybe some hot spice, now's the time to do that. So I'm going to break away, I'm going to get my clam juice in there, get the rest of my potato in there, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've added my potato chunks and everything is good to go. Now we have a nice thick clam chowder. I'm going to let these potato chunks simmer in this for about 20 minutes so they get soft, and then this will be ready to eat. And like I said, now's the point where if you want to start adding extra seasoning to it, this is the time to do it. So I tasted it. It needs a little bit more salt, and I'm probably going to add a little heat to it as well. But that's it. Clam chowder. New England clam chowder from scratch. Okay, so make sure you watch the next episode where I'm going to show you how to make the Cheddar Bay biscuits to go along with it. That'll do it for another episode of Mostly from Scratch. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next episode. So everybody plate up and chow down.